and welcome to our very first edition of the Digital Brew. We're here today in the Whalebone pub in Fingering Hoe. We've decided to go mobile because I'm talking about the past, the present and the future of mobile apps development with Ryan Kelly from Monkey Sauce. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us today. Perhaps you could start by giving us a bit of history about yourself, because you've got a great history of app development.
Yeah, sure. So I've been developing apps since 1999, 98, Windows CE, Palm Pilot days. Long time developing apps. Recent years, last 5 years or so, Monkey Sauce, the agency, has come about. So now we're a small team and we focus especially on mobile and embedded apps.
Embedded apps, fantastic. And you personally wrote the first ever London Tube app?
Yeah, one of. So for Palm Pilot, actually my dad wrote one for Windows CE at the same time as well, and that got us into mobile apps from a sort of university stage.
So you're pretty well qualified to talk about the history. So starting with the history of mobile apps, strikes me that traditionally you really had the option of native app versus a website or kind of mobile website.
Yeah, so going from when Apple released the iPhone and the app stores came about, there was this web versus native argument that swings back and forth. And the web wasn't really ready for apps at that stage. We had WAP before, and then we had smart iPhones could run the mobile web, but it really wasn't good enough for a slick app. So the app stores came about. There was this big gold rush, and there's an app for that came around.
And what do you think? I mean, if you could summarise perhaps the key strengths and weaknesses of each approach, because I'm sure most business owners had the choice of do we do a native app? And of course that means iOS, it means Android, and Microsoft in some instances. What if you could summarise the key strengths and weaknesses of each approach?
So traditionally, kind of the headline things for native apps, you're going to get better performance, a better user experience, a slicker, dedicated app, but it's going to cost you two to three times the amount. You're going to need dedicated teams for each platforms. Yeah. So the web's always been write once, run everywhere, not as good performance. Yeah. Native, you can get that performance, you can get that hardware, and that's been where it started, and really to give a good app experience, companies quickly realised they needed native apps in the early days. Yeah.
Do you think I suppose you've got more control with an app? Certainly iOS particularly, you've got the walled garden, you've got fixed resolutions, you know exactly the hardware you're going on. Do you think that helped give a better experience for kind of app users versus the mobile web user?
Yeah, definitely in the early days. I mean, responsive web design came around to fix a lot of the formatting issues and the size issues, but you still have better control. You had slicker transitions between screens, you had some offline data there. In a web, every page was a request early, so it'd always be slower. And yes, better control, like you say, with the app stores and devices. That's two-sided coin, because you need to be approved by the app stores, especially Apple. And then they may actually limit you getting in there, or may have reasons that they don't like your app. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that, but an app did tend to give a better user experience.
In your history of development yourself, what sort of problems would cause an app not to be approved, for example?
Sometimes it can be silly things, just like the naming of the app. Recently we've had some not approved by Apple because they didn't like the name. You put a word like free in there, and they don't like that so much, so they change their rules as a moving goalpost. Other times there's a famous case of a weather app that was getting released that looked really slick, and Apple updated their operating system and felt that was replicating a piece of the operating system. A couple of years of development for a certain developer gets thrown away. So you are at the mercy.
They wear the trousers sort of commercially.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and I suppose, as a business owner, you face that challenge. I mean, do you think that a lot of businesses felt that they had to do apps? And I mean, I know I've seen lots of apps that I think are totally pointless. And I think there is an app for pretty much everything. There's an app for that. I don't want an app for that. I don't want to do that. Do you think now we're actually reaching a point where things have matured a little bit and there's less frivolous apps?
I think the early days of the App Store seem to be the answer to a lot of businesses' prayers. Get an app out there, you're going to get seen, you're going to get downloaded, and you can produce silly apps like the Fart app, and there were stories of making £100,000 a day from this Fart app. So there's this big rush, definitely, to get into those stores. That time is gone. If you release an app now, there's a good chance it will never be downloaded. If you are downloaded, there's a good chance it's not being used in 30 to 50 days. So it's definitely not the answer. You still need to run a good business. You need to serve your customers. It's not necessarily an app is going to solve your problems. But the same side to the web,
That's right.
You can't ignore web users because you've got an app anymore. You're still going to have the website, and you need to be responsive, serve your mobile users, etc. So,
I suppose the key advantage of the mobile web approach, in theory at least, is compatibility. You should be able to develop once, deploy across multiple devices. If you're doing it to browser standards, you haven't got to build this native app over and over and over again.
Yeah, the huge selling point of web and web technologies is it should be write once, run anywhere. It's never as simple as that, but there's a huge saving. It's easier to get developers for. It's cheaper to develop for web technologies. And yes, you can run on all the platforms, whether you wrap that as an app or you literally run it as a website. There's a huge benefit there. And as the web gets closer to the native app experience, you can see the swinging back to the web.
I think, some of the early apps that certainly I used were really nothing more than a wrapper for a web experience. So it's almost a window. There's this very, very thin app, and it's very reliant on the web technologies underneath that to actually kind of make things happen. And I suppose that gets us to the present. I know from my personal use, I'd almost avoid apps like the plague. I can spend a lot of time, actually not so much now, but going back a year, you're looking at why is my mobile phone dying of battery and why have I consumed a ton of data, and it is usually apps. And actually, for me personally, and I'm not a big Facebook user, but Facebook is notoriously, it's terrible for sort of eating into your battery life. The BBC app, I do use BBC News. All the apps I used to use, I now have on my browser as favourites, and I click from one. And to be honest, I really struggle to notice the difference between the app and the website. And I think that the advent of responsive web, if I was a website publisher, I think anyone would be mad to build a website that's not usable, at least on a website. And I think the more advanced that responsive designers and developers become, actually it's an entirely different experience per device. It's the same underlying website, and that clearly has got advantages in terms of, for us as a marketing agency, I would rather market pages on a website and let sort of mobile phones get to that. Have you experienced at the agency, and do you have more people now actually saying, well, we don't need an app, we want a better website, and we just want a responsive website? Who needs apps?
You get both. A lot of time our clients will come to us looking for an app, and we will actually say, what are the benefits, and do you realise a responsive website may get you those benefits, and you don't need the app. But there is still this feeling in the industry that we need an app, otherwise we're not going to be seen. The truth is, you're talking about those websites like the BBC News. If you go into the App Store and you search for news articles, the App Store won't leverage any of those articles. So as a marketing agency or as a business trying to get your content seen, the App Stores don't help you at all. You still need to be found on the web. And then you can try to drive people into your app or to your responsive website and get the app installs, but there's been this drive to get people installing the apps thinking it's the holy grail. And as we're watching, the user interaction with the apps is not as high as it's been, and the drop-off is quite quick.
Do you think it's a slight vanity metric, the whole notion of how many app downloads?
I believe it has been.
Is it beyond 90 days? The number of people who are using it on a daily basis is
almost zero.
After
3 months, you're down to 95% of people aren't using your app.
As little as that?
Yeah, after 7 days, you've lost 50% of your users. So there's this constant drive to have to get people to install apps or try to bring them in, and it's much easier, businesses are finding, to get people back to their website. So there's marketing campaigns that you may run that bring someone back to a website that might be responsive, but it'll still try to get the person to install the app. And I think we're now getting to the point where a lot of businesses are questioning why. We've got to the website and we've got the reuse.
Yeah.
What's the benefit for the app?
Okay.
And there are some key benefits, but for a lot of businesses, they're probably not going to affect them.
Questionable, yeah. And given the costs of that, how about? I mean, is security one of the issues that your clients? I mean, I know speaking to just people, friends, that they said they feel much more secure and safe using an app over a website.
Yes,
rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, there is that conception that an app is wrapped up, it's secure, you're not in a browser leaking your data. Mainly a misconception. Both are allowed to do the same sort of things, but apps are now, websites are moving to HTTPS. They can be secure. That advertising, Google is not even the organic results for non-secure websites are getting pushed down, or users are getting warned quite heavily since January. So I still think it's a conception that's there in people's heads, and it's something that needs to be addressed to let people know that the web is fine.
Secure. Yeah. I think that'd be across the web, full stop. Full stop, not just the mobile versus web. So if you think about the future of kind of mobile apps, I keep hearing talk about progressive web apps. In layman's terms, what on earth is a progressive web app?
It's basically the web becoming app-like.
Right.
So far we've been discussing a responsive website. It's still a website in a browser that you go to a URL. And we have apps that you install and have certain capabilities like offline and push notifications and background syncs.
Yep.
And a progressive web app is a new push of a group of technologies that lets the web become app-like. So you may go to a website such as the BBC.
Yep.
And it would say, would you like to add this to your homepage? And when you do, it essentially gets certain privileges that make it very app-like. It will be allowed to do background syncs. Rightly or wrongly, that might upset your battery life. They may behave, but it can store offline data, and more than the website could. So you can come to that offline and still have your news served to you because it pulled it when you had a Wi-Fi connection before you left the house.
Right.
And you can get push notifications. Something that big key benefit of apps is you can talk to your users, you can notify them in news articles, breaking news or key deals, and these progressive web apps can have that. So they really are blurring the lines between the two.
As a user, can you go into the app and define how that app can use your data? Whether you receive push notifications, the background data thing, can you control that, or is it?
Currently, the control is limited.
Right.
If you install a progressive web app, you are going to allow it to use offline capability, much like you install an app.
Yeah.
But those permissions look like they're changing quite quickly. So you'll get finer control of when you can install and what it can do. But currently, once you've installed it to the home screen, it gets certain privileges just from that very action.
Okay. Google particularly seems to be pushing progressive web apps more than most. Why is that? Is that just that they have a sort of...
I think they have a self-interest in the web, obviously. All of their money is from web searches, and the technology is getting good enough they can do this. They probably are seeing a lot of problems with the app stores that they're struggling to solve. But content is still served through a browser, through a search. At the moment, even the Google Play Store will not search the data within an app. It will just search the apps. And they've tried deep linking instant articles, which come up at the top as that little carousel now, and they're just trying to get that mobile experience quicker and more native feel to it. And
will the progressive web app still be available in the Play stores and App stores, or will it be primarily driven by arriving at a website on a mobile device?
I think for the future, there will be a strategy to have a responsive website. You may upgrade that to a progressive web app. And if you're a big enough player, you'd still have your apps as well.
Okay, so they'd sit side by side.
They would currently sit side by side. But progressive web apps could replace apps for a lot of companies, or certainly be the first one you produce.
Yeah, I suppose... Certainly, personal use, I'll always look at within the Play Store, for me being an Android person, but I will look at user reviews, and that's probably the single most important factor if I decide, do I install this app or not? And if someone says it kills your battery, it's a nightmare, I won't do it. If I suspect that, and it's interesting in terms of sort of marketing apps in the future, you'll be reliant on Google, just normal search. There'll be
just normal search.
Reviews about these apps because they're sitting outside the ecosystem of the app stores. Okay. What triggers do you want to download this progressive web app? Because I don't think I've had that myself.
Yeah, at the moment, there's probably 3-4% of websites are going to have some of the progressive web app technologies installed, and they're probably not going to be in the UK, US, so you may not have seen it. Traditionally, currently the browser will trigger that. So as a developer, you can't keep showing a banner.
Okay.
You know, the browser will decide you visited his website a number of times.
It'll pop up almost sort of invasive.
It'll come up from the bottom.
Okay.
Do you want to add this to your home screen? If you dismiss it, you're unlikely to see it again.
Yeah.
But the browser's in control of saying, you come here quite often. This does have progressive web app technology. Okay. Would you like to add it? So Twitter's probably the big UK one that's converted this year. February they launched the whole new stack as a progressive web app. And it's excellent. You install that on your home screen, you're not going to know the experience is first class.
Okay. Is it a little bit like lots of forums? You go to a forum and they'll say, do you want to download the app? It's better. Is it that sort of trigger to the users? It's better kind of thereafter?
Yes, it's a very similar trigger. But it's just said, do you want to add this to your home screen? That's the wording they're using at the moment.
Yeah. The big sort of elephant in the corner, I guess, is Apple. And if I know that their kind of revenue share models are very heavily biased towards Apple, and I think was it one of the big published, Telegraph or one of the big papers basically said, well, we don't want to give 30% of all our revenue recurring revenue on a subscription model to Apple. Would a progressive web app, in theory, get around that problem if it's not going via the app?
Yes,
okay.
It would. So you've had a number of public debates from the Financial Times, Amazon, Microsoft were slow putting Office in because they know once you're in the Apple App Store, they're taking 30%. They do not seem to make deals, none that we know about. So, especially the news.
Is it a flat 30% or is it is always 30%?
It's always 30%, even on subscriptions. So you subscribe to the Financial Times, you happen to subscribe within Apple's ecosystem, they take 30%.
Okay.
If you subscribed on their website, downloaded the app and logged in, Apple don't get a cut. So that's the rules of that walled garden. So there's a big advantage to being outside of that for certain subscription models, news sites, etc.
And perhaps that explains why Google doesn't have that model. Therefore, it's more motivated to improve the web for everyone. They've got the kind of big.
Google still have the model, but they also have the web that they make a lot of money out of. So most of their money is advertising. So it's not such a big thing for them. And Apple, it's not that they're refusing to do this. They're just one of the big players not on board.
Is it on the agenda, but they're not committing kind of one way or the other?
It's under consideration is Apple's wording, but Apple are famously tight-lipped, so it may get announced sort of in June or something, or it may decide that it doesn't suit them at the moment.
Okay. And if they say no, presume that's going to be quite a big kibosh, really, on the future of this technology, because it's still, yes, Android's growing, but let's wait for the iPhone 8. That's going to be a successful handset. Lots of people use iPhones and iPads, so it does strike me that the power does reside slightly with Apple in terms of the longer-term success of this technology.
It does. I think I look at it the other way, that if Apple say yes, it's kind of rocket fuel to the technology. Everyone's gonna jump on board very quickly, and a lot of people are holding off now to see what they do. But if you do write a progressive web app, it will still work in Safari as a browser and still offer a great experience without some of the benefits, such as offline and push notifications. And you can still wrap that as an app to get into the App Store. So what we're advising clients at the moment is a progressive web app can serve all markets except Apple. We will wrap that and put it in the App Store, and we will have to have a marketing strategy to get you installs there. And if Apple say yes to this, you can just probably go with the progressive web app.
Yeah, and I presume Apple, if they are making their money from it, and you say it's a wrapper, there's no reason to suspect they won't do that, because if it's a good user experience and it's a popular app, then that probably will work. At Monkey Sauce, I mean, have you had clients asking you for progressive web apps, or is it more? I mean, is it so sort of avant-garde that you're saying you might want to think about this? You know, this is the emerging technology. Because I say that there are few and far. There aren't many case studies proving that it's the way to go.
Yeah, right now it's us saying this is another option you have. So we'll get clients say we would like an app or we need an app, and we sort of explain the development costs for iOS and Android, and then you could have just a responsive website, or we can get you this progressive web app, which really does sit between the two and gives you the benefits.
Will that mean you don't need the iOS debatable, but in theory, you won't need both the iOS and the Android, because the progressive web app will do both?
Yes, in theory, and you won't need the iOS team. So to write two apps, we need Android developers and iOS developers, very different technologies. And we could write the progressive web app with the one team and then just wrap it at the end for iOS, and it'll be in the stores as a fully-fledged app. And, it'll still be.
And is it fundamental web technologies? I mean, should the web team who are building the responsive sites think about the PWA whilst they're doing that? Can you do both at one time, basically?
Yeah, 100%. So writing a hybrid web-based app or responsive website and a native app were completely different code bases, or still are. A progressive web app is an enhancement to your responsive website today. So we have clients saying we have a responsive website, we're looking to get into app stores, and we say we can just add on some of these progressive web app technologies and give you this offline experience, this home screen install, push notifications. With a very small team, or your current web team can do that. It's a really nice, and I think that's why it should take off, because it's not
incremental costs actually isn't too bad, and it's probably still better than just a normal responsive website. And it probably varies according to what it is. If it's a news site, news is news. It's text based. It's relatively quick to download. You don't need that background sync necessarily, unless you're on the tube or you're on the train and you need to get that data for your train journey or whatever it may be. Okay, are there any other kind of weird, wacky things you've seen recently that kind of worth talking about, or is sort of progressive web apps where the main thrust of interest should be?
In terms of mobile development of apps, there's always this decision each time. Do we go purely native with SDKs? Do we write it in web technologies? That seems to be where we're heading as an agency, and we're doing a lot of good work in that regard. But there's new technologies coming out that let you write with web technology. So JavaScript is the language of the web, which, but it creates two native apps out the back of it. So we've got React Native and a bunch of others that are going down the route of write once, but still push out the native, or write once and run everywhere. So it's constantly changing, but I am excited that this is a big improvement for the web, and will be a game changer for a lot of stuff we do.
Fantastic, and ultimately users benefit. So it's a sort of homogenised experience across all platforms and everything. Brian, it's been great speaking to you. Thanks a lot for your time. Where can people find out more about Monkey Sauce?
On the web, monkeysauce.co.uk. Our blog and our website's up there. So if anyone's interested, pop along there.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for episode 1. Hope you enjoyed that. Please do leave feedback in the comments on our website. We'd love to get some feedback. We've got social media in the army coming up in a couple of weeks, so keep tuned for that one, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.